thinking about travel usually brings up excitement, right? New places, adventures. But for a lot of families, especially with younger kids, just the thought of getting on a plane,
Yep.
that could bring worry, fear, or even, well, panic. We've probably all seen a nervous child at the gate or maybe felt that anxiety ourselves. So today we're doing a deep dive into how we can actually help children move past that fear of flying. We've spent time with a really comprehensive parent guide, and it's just packed with expert advice and practical strategies. Our goal here is simple, to give you a clear roadmap, basically, to help turn those pre-flight jitters into something more confident, maybe even exciting, actionable steps to make the journey smoother for, well, for everyone.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how often this fear isn't really just about the plane itself. It seems to connect to deeper things for kids, doesn't it? Things like losing control, the unfamiliar. And it gets amplified because developmentally they're still figuring out the difference between something that could happen, versus something that's actually likely to happen. Understanding those roots, that's the essential first step, really.
That's a really key distinction. So it's less about aerodynamics and more about, well, how a child's mind processes the whole unfamiliar event. Okay, so before we jump into solutions, we need to get why. Why do these little flyers get so overwhelmed? What does the guide say are the main reasons?
Well, the source highlights several big ones. First off, there's just the lack of control and the sheer unfamiliarity of it all. I mean, picture being a kid in a huge, noisy airport. You've got security lines, crowds everywhere, strange boarding routines, then that sudden roar of the engines. It's a complete sensory overload, and they have basically no say in any of it. That alone can be really unsettling.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then there are the actual physical sensations, right? The loud noises, maybe unexpected bumps from turbulence, that weird ear-popping thing during takeoff or landing. For a child, these can easily feel like signs of danger if they don't understand what's happening.
Okay, so control, unfamiliarity, sensations. What else?
A big one is their imagination. Kids have incredibly vivid imaginations, and sometimes dramatic movie scenes or news clips about crashes can fuel that. Their minds can spin these rare events into something that feels really imminent. And here's where it gets particularly interesting from a developmental perspective. Younger kids especially, they struggle with abstract thinking. They haven't quite developed the tools to rationally weigh risks or understand statistics. So the idea of a plane crash, even though it's statistically tiny, feels just as possible to them as, say, going to the park.
Wow, okay.
And finally, and this is a crucial one, parental modeling. Kids are like little sponges, aren't they? If a parent is visibly anxious about flying, even if they try to hide it, the child often absorbs that fear. It can sort of transfer over.
That point about parents really hits home. How much our own stuff can leak out without us realizing.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing they watch us so closely, how do we get ahead of this? The guide really stresses preparation, right? What steps can we take before airport day?
Absolutely. Preparation is huge. The guide really emphasizes starting with an early, calm, and honest conversation. Not overwhelming them, but just setting expectations. Talk about what security's like, what takeoff and landing might feel like, the different noises they'll probably hear. The key is using neutral, reassuring language.
Like what, specifically?
Well, for instance, instead of saying, "Don't worry, the plane won't crash," which ironically plants the idea, you might say something like, "Airplanes are built strong, they can handle bumps in the sky, kind of like a car handles a bumpy road." It just reframes it as normal.
Okay, normalizing it makes sense.
Exactly. And beyond just talking, you need to actively practice coping skills at home. Simple things like deep breathing exercises. Think blowing out birthday candles slowly, that kind of visual works well. Or visualization. Have them imagine being calm on the plane, maybe looking out the window, or picturing arriving happily at your fun destination. It's like a mental rehearsal for being calm.
Mental rehearsal, I like that.
And a calm kit, definitely recommend that. Just a small bag with comforting things, a favorite little toy, maybe a fidget thing, coloring book, definitely headphones for noise.
Yeah, the calm kit sounds brilliant. Practical, and gives them something tangible.
It does. And another thing is involving them in the planning. It gives them back a sense of control, some buy-in, let them pick out snacks or choose a book or music for the flight, maybe give them a little job like snack captain or chief map reader. It makes them feel like an active part of the journey, not just someone being dragged along.
Right, giving them a role.
Yeah. And as we touched on, modeling that confidence yourself. Even if you're nervous inside, projecting calm is so important because they are looking to you for cues on how to react. Oh, and the guide specifically mentions using children's books about flying. Things like The Noisy Airplane Ride or The Airport Book. These are great because they demystify the whole process. It's not just a story. It's a form of pre-exposure, letting them kind of live the experience safely beforehand. It helps build that mental blueprint for calm we talked about.
Those books sound like great tools.
Okay.
So we've done the prep, calm kit packed, talks had, books read. But now we're on the plane. Cabin doors shut, engines are stooling up, and maybe despite everything, the fear starts bubbling up. What do we do right then in the moment?
Right. That's when the real-time coaching kicks in. First, try to normalize what's happening. Reflect their feelings, but provide factual reassurance. So maybe, wow, that loud noise startled you, didn't it? That's just the landing gear folding up now that we're flying. Or if there's turbulence, ooh, bumpy like a road, huh? The plane is just moving through the air.
Acknowledge and explain.
Precisely. Validate the feeling, then provide a simple, non-scary explanation. Distraction is also your friend here. Movies, games, music, telling stories, anything to shift their focus away from the anxiety. You could even start talking excitedly about what you'll do when you land. What's the first thing you want to do at grandma's? Or remember that cool pool at the hotel? Paint a positive picture.
So let's say my child gets fixated on, I don't know, a strange rattle they hear. Should I immediately try and distract with an iPad game, or is there something before that?
That's a good point. The guide suggests acknowledging it first. Maybe something like, I hear that little rattle too. Probably just something settling in the overhead bin. Then you can gently redirect. Hey, you want to see if we can beat level 3 on your game now? So validate first, then distract. And don't forget to actively coach them through those coping skills you practiced. Guided them in breathing together. Okay, let's do our slow candle breaths, or use a grounding technique that's really useful. Like, okay, quick, tell me 3 things you can see right now, 2 things you can feel like your fuzzy sweater, and 1 thing you can hear besides the engine.
Oh, the grounding technique. I've heard of that.
It's surprisingly effective. It just pulls their attention out of the anxious thoughts and back into the immediate physical environment, kind of anchors them. And maybe most importantly, stay patient. Expect some tears, maybe some clinging. Try not to minimize their fears, saying, don't be silly. Usually backfires. Acknowledge it. I see you're feeling really scared right now. Then gently guide them back. Let's try our breathing. That validation is key before you try to fix it.
That's such a crucial reminder. Acknowledge the feeling first. Okay, so flight's over, wheels down, we've made it. Phew. But the work isn't quite done, is it? How do we use this experience to build resilience for the next flight?
Exactly right. That post-flight phase is golden for cementing the progress. First, praise and celebrate their effort, not just whether they were perfectly calm. So instead of just good job, try something specific like, you felt really scared when it got bumpy, but you were so brave and you used your deep breaths. I'm really proud of how you handled that. It focuses on their courage despite the fear.
Highlighting the effort, not just the outcome. I like that.
Yes. Then take a few minutes to debrief the experience later when things are calm. Ask open-ended questions. What part of the flight felt easiest for you today? What was the hardest part? What strategy do you think helped you the most when you felt nervous? This helps them actually recognize and internalize their own coping skills. They start to see what they did that worked. It gives them that sense of agency.
Making them aware of their own success.
Right. And then actively work to build positive associations with flying. Connect it to the fun parts of the trip. Look at photos you took. Maybe have a small celebratory treat that becomes an arrival tradition. Talk excitedly about the destination and what they enjoyed. If we think bigger picture, it's about consciously building up a bank of positive memories linked to flying. So over time, flying isn't just associated with anxiety, but with adventure, family, fun experiences.
Building that positive memory bank.
Exactly. And remember, repeated exposure, when it's handled supportively like this, is powerful. Each flight where they manage their fear, even imperfectly, makes the next one feel a little less daunting. It builds confidence layer by layer.
That makes total sense, turning something scary into a source of pride almost.
Sure.
Okay, now, these strategies sound incredibly helpful for most kids, but surely there are times when the fear is just deeper, maybe more intense than we can handle with these tools alone. What are the signs that tell you, okay, maybe we need some professional backup here?
That's a really important question, and yes, there are definitely times when extra support is needed. The source lays out some clear red flags to watch for. If the fear is really persistent and severe and it starts interfering with their daily life, maybe they're having trouble sleeping for weeks before a trip, or their mood is significantly affected, that's a big sign.
Okay, so it's spilling over into everyday life.
Right. Or if they show actual panic symptoms when faced with flying things like a racing heart, shortness of breath, maybe even vomiting, or an absolute refusal to get near or board the plane. That indicates a level of anxiety that probably needs professional assessment. And going back to the parent factor, if a parent has significant, perhaps unmanaged anxiety about flying themselves, seeking therapy might be beneficial for both the parent and the child to break that potential cycle.
Right. So if we see those signs, what kind of help is available?
The good news is there are very effective therapies. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is often the go-to. It essentially helps kids learn to identify their anxious thoughts about flying, challenge them, and learn coping behaviors. CBT often includes something called exposure therapy, which sounds scarier than it is. It's a very gradual, supportive process. Maybe starting with just looking at pictures of planes, then visiting an airport observation deck, maybe eventually sitting in a plane on the ground, all guided by a therapist.
Taking it step by step.
Exactly, very controlled. For younger children, play therapy can be amazing. It lets them act out and process their fears using toys and games in a safe way. And parent coaching, helping parents manage their own reactions and model calm, is often part of the package too. The guide also points towards great resources like looking up info from the American Academy of Pediatrics, reading books by anxiety experts like Tamar Chansky or Reid, or checking out websites like the Child Mind Institute. There's a lot out there, which is reassuring. No family has to figure this out totally alone.
That's good to know that range of support exists.
Yeah.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here for you listening? This deep dive really shows that helping a child overcome a fear of flying, it's not just about surviving a trip, it's actually about equipping them with some pretty fundamental life skills, isn't it? Managing anxiety, building resilience, boosting their confidence in general.
It really is, and that brings up a fascinating question, doesn't it? If we take these same core principles, the careful preparation, the active support during the stressful moments, the positive reinforcement afterwards, and apply them to other anxieties our kids face, whether it's starting school or trying something new. What kind of broader impact could that have? How much could it boost their overall resilience, their general willingness to step out and explore the world with maybe a bit more courage?
That's a really powerful thought to end on, that this specific journey, overcoming a fear of flying, can actually become a much bigger journey towards self-reliance and capability for your child. Something that prepares them for all sorts of adventures life throws their way. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.